Welcome to day 2 of the Opera Euro Rapid. Before we get into the games, let's check out the standings from day 1. There are 16 players in this tournament. Remember, it is the top 8 players who go through to the knockouts. In the top 8 so far, we have Carlsen, So, Nepomniachtchi, MVL, Giri, Rajabov, Nakamura and Duda. In the bottom 8 we have Aronian, Shankland, Vidit, Grishuk, Dubov, Dingliren, Bluebaum and Dominguez. Today's day 2, which covers rounds 6 to 10, I will be picking some of the best games for day 2. Let's begin. This game was taken from round 8. This is Bluebaum against Shankland. Bluebaum is German number 3 and Shankland is a top American GM, part of the Olympiad winning team. For the USA, d4, knight f6, knight f3, d5, and we get this already. So a peculiar move from white. This early pawn move, well, what does it do? It attacks the bishop, and after this, knight e5. So Bluebaum is moving his knight again, but he has a clear plan. He wants to take the bishop. Shankland retreats the knight this way, which is very strange. Normally you would expect to move this knight and then maybe take. But he decided to move this knight. After take, maybe Shankland is going for e5, but no. After bishop g2, e6, this is the point. When your opponent has a light squared bishop, you want to be putting lots of your pawns on light squares to blunt the bishop, to reduce its power. Knight d2, f5. Here we have it. White is now going to find it very difficult to free his position. So he goes for this pawn break, c4. You don't want to take, but because now you wake up this bishop. That's why Shankland keeps it solid. c4, knight f6, g5, knight e4. So really cool transformation. You got your pawn on f5 and d5, and now you've just brought your knight back to f6, and then in the center, take. With a structure like this, it really is blunting this bishop. So a very successful opening for black so far. h4, got to defend your pawn because the queen was planning to take it. Now black strikes in the center with c5. Planning to break the center. Also the knight can come here, and the queen also puts pressure on that pawn. Take, knight c6. Black is saying, well, I can get my pawn back anytime. Bishop takes. Pawn, if the queens come off, then black is ready to take back with the rook. a3, take, b4, bishop, retreat. So neither side really wants to trade queens, which is good for me because it makes the game even more interesting. The queen goes to b3 and the king goes to f7. c5, bishop e5. It's the perfect bishop controlling both sides of the board. Rook a2, rook takes h4. Shankland now sacrifices the exchange. Really cool way to crash through, because after take, queen takes g5, the queen attacks both the rook and the bishop. White doesn't even defend either piece because black is going to spend time taking one of them. He attacks the knight instead, but now knight a5, knight attacks queen. In the meantime, the queen still attacks the rook and the bishop. I was thinking, instead of b5, if Bluebaum saved his rook, then queen takes, and after rook f1, maybe the bishop can come back to f6. Then the knight can come to e5, and it's just so dangerous. The rook can come here, really cutting off the king. So after this, queen takes g5, b5, knight a5, queen there, and then queen takes bishop. Bishop d2, not taking the knight, even though white is attacking it, because after check, you're going to come in and take the bishop. Check, take. And black has so many threats. The queen can come back to c4 to win the rook. The queen can't actually come in because the bishop is perfectly placed in the center. After check, if you go king d2, that's worse because queen f2 check and you actually pick up the rook instead. Bishop d2, g5. Really cool move. Just putting a direct question to the rook. In fact, it is running out of good squares. Only h5 and h7 are squares for the rook. Rook h7, king g6. The king is now an attacker. The rook has run out of squares. Queen takes knight, king takes rook. Black has got his material back with a winning position because the king is just in the middle. Queen g1 check coming soon. Rook in the game soon. King runs away, take the pawn. c6, b6, shutting out the queen. This pawn isn't going anywhere. Black has just too many threats with the queen. Even this can march. This bishop is just a perfect bishop throughout the game. Queen f1 check. Bishop blocks. Bishop g3. c7, and you just come back and take the pawn. The c7 move was just a distraction, but after taking, Black still has so many threats. The rook can go to d8 with check. The bishop can come back to g3 to put pressure here. Also, black, there's just so many pawns up. Look at all these pawns. By the way, the rook can't swing over to h2 because this bishop actually guards that square. If you play rook f2, let's say if the game continues attacking the queen, let's throw in a check, and then the queen can come back. And look at this. The queen can take this pawn. The queen can come here. The bishop can come here, and it's going to be checkmate very soon. So that's how Shankland won against Bluebaum. Really cool victory. In round 9, I thought this was the best game. Giri against MVL. We have an open Sicilian, and we have the classical Sicilian. 2 knights out straight away. Bishop g5. e6, queen d2. White now castles. Bishop d7, king b1. Always a very useful move. Bishop e7, take, and f3. Very solid setup. Giri is just saying, well, I'm going to defend my center. Just wait to see what black is going to do. Because where's black going to put his king? Is he going to castle? b5, h4. If you castle, it's like you're walking right into attack. So queen c7, giving black an option. Maybe you'll castle this way. So just playing a guessing game at the moment. Knight e2. This is a typical move in the classical Sicilian when the knights have come off. Normally white has a knight in the middle. But because those knights have been traded, you can actually move your knight back to come in the middle. Knight to d4 or even to f4. MVL kicks the bishop back. Knight f4 or d4 is still possible. d5. And this is the first brilliant move of the game. Tension is created in the center, so it looks like white might have to resolve that tension with take and then take. But then this knight is just so well placed in the middle. The bishop can come here, the castle, the rook can come to the d file. This is not what Giri wants. That's why in this position e5 was played. This is a brilliant move, and it just changes the structure in white's favor. You cannot take because bishop f4, the queen cannot retreat in that direction. If the queen goes here, knight d4, and you're just going to pick up the bishop. If you go queen here, then you can attack the queen, and then you just attack the queen. It really is running out of squares, so you have to block, but then you're just a bishop down. So after e5, knight d7, f4. Total change in the structure. Black's got pawns on light squares. White has pawns on dark squares. I would prefer white here because white's pawns are further advanced. Knight c5, knight d4, knight e4, queen back to e1. Bishop back, keeping the bishop, g4. Now, black really isn't going to castle, or else you're just going to get mated. So that's why MVL goes to the queen side, bishop d3, g5. Huge move, creating so much tension among the kingside pawns. After g5, f5 is played, and maybe black missed this move because it looks like if you play this, this pawn is going to drop. In the game, g takes h4 was played, allowing f6. Now, if you play queen takes e5, you can take, and then queen a5 is going to be so dangerous. Planning to take, attacking the king. Now the rook can go to d3 and swing over. Attacking the king is going to be mate very soon. So it's just so dangerous. So after f5, take f6. Now the pawns are even further advanced. Bishop c5, rook takes h4, get your pawn back. Now MVL grabs the center pawn, but Giri is just transforming this position. This is probably Giri's best game in the tournament so far. But then he did have an amazing game in day 1 where he beat Nepomniachtchi. So I'm going to include a link to that video in the top right corner. If you want to see the recap for day 1. Queen takes has just been played, queen c3, pinning the bishop to the king. After king b7, knight takes e6, brilliant move by Giri. Take, queen takes c5, coming in. d4, MVL has to block that bishop. Take, queen still coming in, check. Rook h5, amazing move, a rook swing. Notice the rook was here, it took the pawn, now it's gone to h5, planning to win the queen. Rook d5 offering a trade. Take, bishop b6. Look at the queen and bishop working so well, controlling so many dark squares, and this rook is just cutting off the king if the bishop was ever to move. Black is in so much trouble. Rook e8, queen takes a6, check. Here is a really cool moment. I was thinking, instead of this, why not queen b7? Why on earth did MVL just chuck the pawn? Pause the video now or let the timer run. Can you find an amazing move for white? Because it looks like black is just holding on if you trade. But you're not going to trade. What is a brilliant move for white? 5 seconds. Rook takes d5. It's all about deflection. Because after queen takes, queen c7 will be mate. Queen takes a6, check, king d7, king goes for a walk, king goes back, and now a4. This move, maybe it wasn't needed, but it's just such a cool move because you just give yourself a bit of space on the back. a4, man, I don't know if I would have ever played that move. And let's just see what happens after a4. You take and then throw in a check. Queen a5, because you don't want to trade queens. Keep the pressure. Queen and bishop still facing the king. Maybe the rook can find a way in. So I think this is Giri's idea. Bishop c4, bishop b6, check from the queen. King moves to b7, check. Bishop c7, really funky move because the idea is queen b8 mate. And if you play this, there's some amazing geometry by Giri where you check, and then you take the rook. Firstly, this check. This rook covers the d-file, so you got to block and then you come back with check. King can't go there due to the rook, so you block and then you take the rook. And then that's it. You even win the queen with rook d7. So an amazing idea. Queen b7, trying to trade queens, and Giri once again says no. This game is so impressive because he just keeps keeping up the pressure. Queen takes b4, attacking bishop and rook, double attack. Queen b5, queen a5, defending. Same thing, you can't do this because take. Bishop e2, rook d4. So maybe this was the idea. The very, very deep idea from Giri. Recall black actually took, and then the rook can come to d4, finding a way to swing over to the left. Check, king a2, the king is very safe there, queen there, and now bishop back to g3. And so many options with this move. All these squares belong to white, all these dark squares. So many ways to come in the position. White is totally winning. Let's see how he finished it off. Bishop c4 check, you just block with a pawn, and then king b2, avoiding anything. King now defends the pawn. In this position, black resigned. If we play on a bit, bishop b7, rook d6, just coming in with all the pieces. If you move the queen, then queen f5 check, game over. If you block with a rook, if you move the king, then you can play rook d8 check, or I think rook d3 is a really cool move. You just defend the bishop, and you're just going to win a queen. Queen f5 check, block with a rook, take. That's it, check, game over. And you can take, you can push, you can go queen check, and then push, game over. Really, really cool win from Giri. After this, Dominguez went for that pawn, allowing the king in, and it's in this moment, king d6. Instructive moment coming up. Watch this. I was listening to the commentary with Peter Lecco, and he mentioned this plan. I saw him draw the arrows, and that's exactly what will be shown here. The plan is for the bishop to go to g6, then to the b1 square, and then come round to actually flush the white bishop out. So then you can actually push your pawn. You can't push the pawn yet because the pawn will come off, then it will be a draw. So let's see this plan in action. Bishop g6 first. Bishop there, bishop b1. Bishop a2, bishop there, and bishop f7. Now a2 is possible, but there was one more trick from Dominguez. Bishop b1, you can't take because take, and that will be a draw. So after bishop b1, this is the next brilliant endgame move from Carlsen. Bishop b3, forcing the white king to move, or the bishop. If you move this bishop, you can push your pawn. But if you move the king, you are no longer attacking the bishop, and then you take it. These are the two options for white, and that's why white resigned. He has no good moves. That's how Carlsen won this game. Let's have a look at the table after day 2. What matters is the players finish in the top 8, so then they can go to the knockouts. In the top 8 so far, we have Carlsen, so Giri, Nepomniachtchi, Aronian, MVL, Rajabov, Nakamura. In the bottom 8, so places 9 to 16, we have Duda, Grishuk, Vidit, Dubov, Shankland, Bluebaum, Dingliren, and Dominguez. Tomorrow will be day 3. Let's see who finishes in the top 8, proceeding into the knockouts of the Opera Euro Rapid. Thank you so much for watching all the way until the end. If you enjoyed this video, why not give it a like and subscribe to the channel at the same time? If you press the bell, that means YouTube will let you know when I release a new video. Thanks a lot, and I'll see you later.